Welcome to Programming for Designers. This is Trish Ladd, WIP400 Platt College. Headers, Sessions, and Cookies. So again, we're going to talk about the request response cycle, and we're going to talk more details about headers and what they are. Basically, every time you request a URL, the web server responds to the browser request. So there we have request URL respond with a page. And so the request basically goes to the server, finds the file, grabs that file. If it's a PHP extension, processes the PHP. If there's database calls within that PHP, it goes to the database. The database responds with its answer, continues to process the PHP, and then renders it out as a complete page and sends it back to the browser. And this is all part of the HTTP protocol that all communication on the web uses. And the status code of pages is part of the header data. So whenever you get a 404 back, that's part of the header data, and browsers know what to do with it. Headers get sent before the page gets rendered. It's the primary means in which browsers and servers communicate with each other. So this is all data that gets sent to the server and then sent back to the browser before the page. Headers are name value pairs that appear in both request and response messages. We will see that in a moment. And it's important to know these things because it affects the way cookies and sessions are dealt with, and this is what we're going to be learning primarily today. If you try to modify the header after it is sent, you will get an error unless you use a function called output buffering. So here is an example of a request URL. I'm going to go get trishladd.com. It returns with this piece of information. I can actually find this in Chrome and see what this looks like, and that's where I got this data from yesterday. This is what gets sent to my website when I first navigate to it. I blocked out the IP address with asterisk, but normally you would see a set of numbers there. And here you can see the name value pairs separated by a colon. So then here's a response from my server. So we have a connection, we have content encoding, we have content type, on and on and on and on. All of these things basically are ways that the browser and server communicate with each other. We can learn more about headers in more detail, but you don't really need to know much beyond the fact that there's a request and there's a response, and that cookies ride on those response requests cycle. We can relocate pages by using the header function, which basically modifies that header. And that's how all PHP redirects work. It tells the browser basically that it's a temporary relocation status, and then it makes a new request to get to the new location. So let's talk about cookies. Cookies are nothing more than tiny bits of text stored on your PC by your web browser containing information set by websites, such as your session token, your user preferences, or anything else that the website needs to keep track of for you from one request to the next. Once the website has asked your browser to set the cookie, the next time your browser opens a new request to the server, clicking a link to a page, for example, adding an item to your cart, or even loading an image, your browser will send that cookie back to the website and set that cookie. Cookies exist because the underlying HTTP protocol is stateless. Each request from your browser is completely separate from the next one, so the server needs a way to keep track of what request belongs to what visitor. By storing a small bit of information in a cookie, the website can determine that your page view belongs to your user account. Why cookies are used instead of sessions sometimes? Cookies can persist after the browser is closed, and sessions have a very limited window for how long they live. Cookies persist until they are expired, set by the programmer, or the user clears their cookies from their computer. In Chrome, you can see this with settings, advanced settings, content setting, and then you can see all of the cookie and site data. And this is how cookies are set and retrieved. Cookies will always piggyback on the regular request cycle. I mentioned that earlier. There's no way to get or retrieve a cookie without doing one of those two things. And like all other superglobal arrays, we can retrieve the value of a cookie based off of its key name. So here's what it looks like when it's in a header. So we have our first request, an outgoing response from the server. Here's the cookie, set cookie, admin equals 502. After the initial cookie has been set, the browser then sends the cookie data in the request. So here comes the following thing that says, yeah, I got this cookie, here you go. And then PHP can then process that cookie, use it in its pages accordingly. So here are some more examples. The bare base minimum is the top one, user and John Doe 123. The important part to know about that is if there is no time expiry, as soon as the browser is closed, it will then expire. There's a little more explanation for all of this on the next slide. So set cookie parameters are name of the variable. That would be the key that we would call it by in the superglobal array. The value of the variable, what do we tell it to equal? What value do we want to give this variable? When the cookie should expire. If we do not set a date, it will expire when the browser closes. The path would be the directory that the cookie is available to, and we use / for the whole site. Setting domain for the cookie, it will default to whatever domain it is currently on, and whether or not it requires a secure connection. Here's how we can set a cookie. We have a cookie, the name is user, the cookie value, Jon Snow. We set its time expiration with the time function. The time function gives us the current time in milliseconds. Then we add 1 day's worth of milliseconds times 30. So then here we set the cookie. Now that we've got all the variables that we need, cookie name is user, cookie value is Jon Snow, cookie time is 30 days from now. And cookie domain really is the path argument here. Putting the / as its value lets us go across all the folders in our site. If we want to modify a cookie, if we want to change the value of the user cookie from Jon Snow to Aegon Targaryen, we just reset the cookie. Cookies that have been successfully set can be displayed on the next page request. If I say echo scalar user equals cookie user, then Aegon Targaryen is rendered to the page. We can delete cookies with the same method. Simply by changing the time to a time that is in the past, it will delete the cookie immediately upon the next request response cycle. Sessions. Sessions are also superglobals that you can use to pass data from page to page. So you don't have to use post, and you don't have to use get, and you don't have to use cookie. You can set them and allow them to stay as long as you do not destroy them. They are stored on the server. Each session is identified with a session ID stored in the browser as a cookie. The session ID is how the server identifies your browser as being specific to you, and therefore can retrieve all of the information from the session in the session array. I like to think of sessions as cookies on the server. There's more storage available with sessions so that you can have a larger amount of data rather than just a plain cookie. Cookies are limited to 20 per site. Sessions have no such limitation. There's smaller request sizes since it's not being sent with each session is not being sent with the browser versus cookies. Each cookie is being sent with the browser. All the browser needs is the session ID cookie, and then that way it can reference that value on the server. It's a bit slower to access. It expires when the browser is closed. There is one caveat, that's why I have that little asterisk there. If you are logged in to Chrome, for example, as a Chrome user, and then you go to another computer that also has you logged in as a Chrome user, that session will stay alive. phpsessid is crucial. You need a way for the browser to communicate with the server what your current session is. Otherwise, it's not going to be able to track your data. You won't be able to stay logged in. You won't be able to have data that persists across pages if you're using sessions. And that's why cookies need to be enabled, even when you use sessions. If they are not enabled, you can use that session ID in the URL. And that session ID is basically how the server knows which session belongs to which browser, because there can be many, many connections to the same page at the same time. By storing that value as a cookie, there establishes a connection between the server and the browser and says, hey, I'm using this session ID. The server then goes to its storage where it stores all of the session IDs and says, oh yeah, I know you, user number 7654877CF34ERT8DE da 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 da. And it grabs all of the session data that's associated with your session. So this is why cookies should be enabled. If they are not enabled, we can check to see if they are not enabled, and then we could set a URL parameter that is the value of the session ID and have our server reference that value. Anytime we want to work with sessions, we must use session start, and session start must be done before any code is rendered by the browser to let the server know that we are going to use sessions. And anytime we want to access or set session values, we must use session start. The super global session works a lot the same like post and like get and like cookie. And right now our username has the value of Agon. Here are a list of session functions. Session start basically creates a session or resumes a current one based off of a session ID. As we've mentioned before, session IDs are important so that we can track what browser is currently using the page. That way it keeps a connection between the server and the browser. And this session ID is a string randomly generated by the server and exists as long as the session is open. When you close your browser, it has ended. I've already mentioned the possibility for continuation if you are using a service like being logged into Chrome or being logged into Firefox. If you are logged in on two separate computers with the same browser type, then you could have those sessions carried over, which is both cool and scary. Session unset basically clears all of the values with the current session, and then session destroy removes the current session, which makes the previous values set inaccessible. The best practice is to unset your session and then destroy it. As we've mentioned before, HTTP is stateless and does not maintain data from page to page to page. Sites are dependent upon the response and request cycle. Headers are how browsers and servers talk to each other. So that important bit of data that shows up before the page is how the browser says, hey, server, I need this piece of information from you. I need this file. I need these cookies. I need this. I need that, blah, 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 blah. The server then takes that information and responds accordingly. Cookies and sessions both help data persist across websites so that users can log in and stay logged in. We can then, carry their username across pages without having to re-ping the database every time they show up on a new page. That helps with keeping your bandwidth down and less requests on your server. Cookies store their data in the user's browser on the user's computer, and sessions store their data on the server like cookies store their data on your computer and your browser. I hope this lecture has been helpful and informative to you, and as always, I wish you happy coding.